December 22, 2025. The U.S. Navy brings back the word battleship with a plan valued at $15 billion for Trump-class giants, starting with 2 hulls and a promise of up to 25 ships. But in a world shaped by the ghost of Yamato, whose 71,659 tons and 3,220-pound shells defined naval supremacy, can any modern ship truly break records? Or is this just a new label for a different kind of war? The stakes go far beyond headlines, and the reality behind these numbers might surprise you. On December 22, 2025, the U.S. Navy issued a press release that broke decades of tradition with a single word: battleship. The announcement named the first 2 ships in a new class, the Trump-class, beginning with USS Defiant, hull number BBG-1. The plan, as detailed to Reuters, calls for an initial pair of hulls and an ambition to eventually field a force of 20 to 25 of these giants. The Navy's official language described them as the largest and most lethal surface combatants ever commissioned, a statement that sparked headlines and questions in equal measure. For the first time since the early 1990s, the term battleship appeared in an official U.S. fleet plan, no longer a relic of history, but a promise of something unprecedented. The Golden Fleet Program, as the initiative is known inside Navy circles, stands at the center of this revival. The institutional voice behind the project speaks in terms of scale, power, and deterrence, framing the Trump-class as a response to rising global threats and the demands of modern warfare. The Navy outlined a future where these ships would serve as command and control hubs, lead surface action groups, and deliver missile firepower on a scale never before attempted. The press release left little doubt about the intended message. The United States is back in the business of building ships that aim to dominate the seas, not just in capability, but in symbolism. Yet, behind the bold language and ambitious numbers, the return of the battleship label prompts a new scrutiny. What does it mean to revive a word so loaded with history? And how will these ships measure up to the legends that came before? The answer requires a closer look at what made the battleships of the past so formidable, and why their legacy still shapes the Navy's boldest plans. During World War II, naval power was measured in steel and firepower. The Japanese battleship Yamato stood at the peak of this era. Laid down in 1937 and commissioned in late 1941, Yamato displaced nearly 72,000 tons at full load and stretched 862 feet 10 inches, dimensions that dwarfed nearly every other warship afloat. Its main battery consisted of 9 18.1-inch guns, each capable of firing a 3,220-pound armor-piercing shell over 26 miles. A single broadside unleashed more than 29,000 pounds of metal, a figure often misquoted but confirmed by original shell weights. These numbers became the gold standard for what a battleship could be. Naval historians point to Yamato's massive guns and thick armor as the defining features of the battleship age. Yet, by the end of the Second World War, the calculus of naval warfare had shifted. The United States Iowa-class, the American answer to Yamato, was longer. USS Missouri measured 887 feet 3 inches, but it was lighter, with a full load of about 60,000 tons. These ships traded some armor for speed, reaching over 30 knots, and served into the missile age. But even the Iowa-class could not escape obsolescence. The last of them, including Missouri, left service in 1992. For more than 30 years, the United States Navy operated without a true battleship. The focus moved to aircraft carriers, submarines, and missile destroyers, leaving a gap where once the world's largest guns had reigned. Now, as plans for the new Trump-class Defiant point to a length of up to 880 feet, the question is not just about breaking records, it is about what those records mean in a world defined by new threats and new technology. On paper, the Trump-class Defiant reads less like a ship and more like an arsenal afloat. The published specifications list a main battery built for the missile age. 128 vertical launch system cells form the backbone, capable of holding a mix of long-range strike and air defense missiles. 12 dedicated cells are set aside for conventional prompt strike, hypersonic weapons designed to hit distant targets in minutes. The ship's offensive punch is rounded out with the SLCMN, a sea-launched nuclear cruise missile, giving Defiant a role in both conventional and strategic operations. Defensive systems fill out the rest of the spec card. 2 RAM launchers guard against incoming missiles. 4 30mm autocannons provide close-in fire for smaller threats. The ship is also slated to carry 4 Odin laser systems designed to blind or disable drones and sensors at the speed of light. To counter the growing threat of unmanned aerial vehicles, 2 dedicated counter-UAS systems are included. Each layer adds another shield, reflecting a world where threats can come from every direction and at every altitude. Every number in the published design points to a ship intended to outgun, outlast, and outthink anything afloat. It is a leap from the battleships of the past, where steel and gunpowder set the limits. Here, the magazine is deep, the weapons are digital, and the battlefield stretches for hundreds of miles in every direction. The claims are bold, and the scale is hard to ignore. The promise of a 32-megajoule railgun on the Trump-class Defiant reads like a leap into science fiction. But the facts on the ground are less forgiving. In 2021, the U.S. Navy halted all funding for electromagnetic railgun research, citing persistent technical barriers and shifting priorities. The core problems were never solved. Every shot from a railgun at that power level erodes the barrel at a rate that limits its lifespan to just a few hundred firings, far from the thousands needed for sustained combat. Each launch draws a burst of energy so intense that it strains even the most modern shipboard generators, demanding power levels that outstrip what any current surface combatant can provide. Directed energy faces its own hurdles. The Odin laser, already in limited service, operates at lower power and can dazzle or disable small drones at close range. But the jump to 300-kilowatt class lasers, as promised for the Defiant, remains years away from maturity. Helios, the Navy's most advanced shipboard laser, has only recently reached 60 kilowatts in operational settings, and even then, it struggles with atmospheric distortion and cooling requirements. Sustaining multiple high-power beams for more than a few seconds at a time pushes the limits of today's power and thermal management systems. A defense technologist familiar with the Navy's high-energy weapons programs puts it plainly: you can put anything on a spec sheet. Making it work at sea, under battle conditions, is another matter entirely. The gap between what is advertised and what is achievable is not just a matter of engineering. It is a question of whether ambition can outpace reality, or if the most expensive ship ever built will spend its early years waiting for its most advanced weapons to catch up. No official price tag for the Trump-class Defiant exists. Estimates from defense analysts and public reporting place the lead ship's cost between $10 billion and $15 billion, with the upper end reflecting the steep premiums that come with launching a new class. For context, the Zumwalt-class destroyers were projected at $2.3 billion each, but later ballooned to over $5.6 billion per hull after design changes and production cuts. The Ford-class aircraft carrier, the Navy's most recent leap in scale, saw its lead ship cross the $13 billion mark. A budget analyst familiar with major Navy procurements notes that first-in-class ships almost always go over budget, sometimes by half, sometimes by more. With construction not expected until the early 2030s, every number is provisional. The only certainty is that the Trump-class will test the limits of what Congress and the Navy are willing to spend on a single warship. Every dollar committed to the Trump-class Defiant comes at a price elsewhere in the Navy's shipbuilding plans. The current budget window is already packed with priorities. New attack submarines, next-generation destroyers, and unmanned surface vessels all compete for the same limited funds. Adding a class of ships that could cost more than an aircraft carrier forces Congress and the Pentagon to make hard choices. Building even a handful of these battleships risks delaying or shrinking submarine and destroyer programs that provide the stealth and flexibility needed in contested waters. Some analysts warn that a fleet of 20 Defiants could crowd out as many as 30 new submarines or 40 destroyers over a decade. The schedule for unmanned systems, seen as crucial for future naval warfare, could slip years behind. The Navy faces a crossroads: pursue a symbol of power or maintain the balance of forces that has defined American sea power for decades. This ship is not just steel and speculation. It is a test costing $15 billion that asks how power, technology, and risk collide on the world stage. As missile ranges grow and budgets tighten, the real contest is for relevance itself. The future of naval warfare is being written, one gamble at a time.